Hello, this is the NICU Lived Network, and we are your hosts. I'm Melinda.
I'm Nat.
And I'm Emma. We are all NICU mothers using our lived experience to partner with health professionals to impact research, advocacy, and clinical practice.
Each week we will bring you something new. It could be a topic highlight, the latest in research, a visit to a NICU, or ways in which you can use your lived experience within the NICU to impact change. We hope you enjoy this episode. Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of the NICU Lived Network. Today we are recording this episode on World Prematurity Day. World Prematurity Day is about raising the awareness of preterm birth as well as the needs and rights of these babies and their families. Given the significance of today's recording, it's great to be able to introduce our special guest, Jacque Herman from California, USA. Jacque was born premature and now works as a preemie advocate. So welcome, Jacque. It's wonderful to have you here.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for having me. As you said, Natalie, I am the author of Dear Baby Preemie, A Miracle in the NICU. A little background history. I was born 2 pounds and 2 ounces in 1985, which was the height of the AIDS epidemic. And my family encouraged and really wanted me to stay alive. The doctors had given me 50% chance of life. And now, 38 years later, I work for the same company that diagnosed me, and they're paying 100% of my lifestyle. So God certainly has a sense of humor.
Wow.
Sorry, I was just
Oh, yeah,
converting
we should
pounds
do
to
that math.
kilograms. It's about 900 grams-ish, if I've got
Yeah,
my
I was about
calculations
900
right,
grams,
which is
correct.
which is tiny. So how many
Yeah,
weeks were you?
so my due date was April, and I was born in
Yeah.
January.
So early.
Definitely. Yeah, my mother didn't even know that she was in labor. She was just heading. I don't know if you're aware of San Francisco, but they have a lot of various hills, and the hospital was on a hill. So my mother was just walking up for a checkup, and the doctors told her that she was going into labor, and so you had to call my dad, and then she was just in labor for the evening till the morning. I was born at 6:53 in the morning.
Wow.
Oh, wow. And
I can't imagine how scary that would have been. Like by today's standards, a 900-gram baby or 2 pounds, 2 ounces is really so
in the mid-80s.
decades ago.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a traumatic experience for both my mother and my father. They had never experienced that. They weren't prepared for it. And my father says there was just a lot of trauma associated with just being in the NICU, not
Yeah.
being aware of what the doctors are saying, not knowing what to do. One of the highlights that I have is that when they finally released me from the hospital, I had to wear Cabbage Patch clothes. I don't know if you remember those dolls, the very Cabbage
I
Patch
do.
dolls.
Yes, I
They
had
were,
one. I had 2.
uh-huh. Yeah, see, mine's name was Sigmund. So my parents had bought Sigmund for me, but I had to wear his clothes because there were no preemie clothes. And so it took 4 months for me to gain the 5 pounds that was required for me to be released.
Yeah,
Wow.
okay. That's a long time.
Yes, yeah, and unfortunately, my parents weren't allowed to touch me, so my skin was peeling. I had definitely had to have a blood transfusion, and then later on, my parents had received a letter saying that that blood transfusion that was given might have been tainted with the HIV virus. So thank God there was no HIV within the blood, but still, just all of the things that my parents had to process in that time and all the things that they had to sign off for and just be aware of um, is a real big reason why I wrote this book, because parents need a friend in the NICU. And may I show it to you?
Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so here's my book, Dear Baby
Oh.
Preemie. That's me right there. That's my mother's hand right there. Oh, opposite the camera. That's my mother's hand right there. So you can see how small I was. I literally could be cradled in my father's palm.
So what inspired the book? Like, I'm so interested because, you going through that journey, and, I'd love to know how much your mum and your parents shared that with you, because we've had the opportunity now to speak to multiple adults that have been born prem. You're our first male, which is amazing. And we actually spoke about that on the last episode. And, I guess the journey behind your parents making that such an integral part of your story so that you're aware of your birth story. But then fast forward, you've been inspired to then write a book. I thought it was just it's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. So, one thing that really inspired me to write the book was a number of families that are within my church circle and within my community were experiencing premature babies. And when I would go and visit, I'm also a elder in my church, so my wife and I would go and visit. We would go pray for the different babies. And while I was there, two of the mothers had said to me, "I told my child about your testimony." So I thought, oh,
Mhm.
that's fascinating. And what a great opportunity that would be to transmit more hope. So I wrote this 26-page book that a mother or a father could put in their diaper bag. And while they are needing opportunities to bond with their child, because maybe they might be like me, they might not be able to touch their child, or there might be a lot of equipment surrounding their child. Well, you could still bond with your child through reading. And one of my desires was just to fill the room with hope, just fill the room with hope. Um, I think I really appreciate my parents for being my advocate because I certainly couldn't fight for myself. And they spoke up, they asked questions, they really were consistent in showing up to the NICU daily, even though it was very hard. One thing that my mother says is that it was a very long hallway to get to where I was, and she had to pass multiple mothers and fathers who received dreadful news about their preemie. And so to be able to hold space for them while holding space for your own child could be really lonely and quite difficult. And so I
Mhm.
thought, well, in this season, why don't you have a friend? Which is Dear Baby Preemie, A Miracle in the NICU, a direct letter to a preemie that this is for you, and you can make it. Now I know that circumstances happen, life happens. Not all preemies survive, which is a tremendous blow to the head and to the heart. And so whatever the trial may be, whatever the answer may be, a parent can still read my book and have hope. That's
Mhm.
what I hope for. I hope that when they are in their most bewildered moment, they can read about Jacques Herman, the little French prince. I'm not French, but that's what the nurses used to call me, the little French prince, and and have a friend with them in their most loneliest time. And so, as you can see, it's a pretty thin book. It's small. It's malleable, so they could toss it around. They could have it near them, um, so that they can find some comfort and hope. And I think it's a great resource for staff members as well. Like I said, I work for the same company that Kaiser Permanente, which diagnosed me with 50% chance of life. And oftentimes, staff don't know how to care
Mhm.
for a child who has severe issues in birth. And so, even my book just being present in a staff room while a staff member is going through and processing, okay, what medications do I need to give this child? What affirmations do I need to give this child? Maybe they can just turn to one of my little pages and read something out loud. Okay, when you go home, it will be a joyous day. Something simple like that, that the baby is hearing, because the baby is still processing information.
Absolutely.
And so I think it's so wonderful for a parent to know that they are the primary educator and the primary advocate of their
Mhm.
child. And also, it's a great encouragement for fathers too, because
Mhm.
mothers spent months with this child, and fathers sometimes can feel very lonely and isolated. And so you have a resource to be able to say, oh, no, I can bond with my child as well.
That's a lovely motivation for doing the book. And off the back of from that as well, from the male perspective, obviously your parents have shared your journey with you. And has your dad shared his side of how it was for him going through the NICU unit and how it is of being the father rather than the mother?
That's a great question, Emma. My father has
Mm.
shared very vocally what that experience was like. First, he didn't expect that he was going to have a NICU baby, but from the moment that my mother said she was going into labor, my father was in prayer, and he immediately put me into God's hands. One of the things that my parents always spoke over my life was Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. So I heard that. I heard that growing up. I heard that in my story. And so my dad was always adamant about setting vision and also just being present. As I told you, there was one day it was just too hard for my mom to show up. And so my dad had to go. And one thing that I think makes strong parents is consistency.
Mm.
And also from my father's point of view, he was extremely complimentary. He did not waver in being nice to the staff because they needed to see him. And especially as an African American male, you needed to see that an African American male was present, cared, and was hopeful for their child and had every intention of being involved in that child's life. And so doctors and staff need to see that.
Mm.
That this was a unit. We came as a unit, we're leaving as a unit. And so the one story that I think about and I laugh about often is when they came to pick me up. We all had matching outfits, balloons, and teddy bears and things like that. And the doctors had said to my mother, "I'm sorry, I think we're going to keep him for another week." And so that just tipped my mom off. She was like, "You're going to give me my baby." and, and so my dad, in just seeing the situation, he told the nurses, "Okay, you have an hour to get him ready. We are ready to take our child home. I'm going to take
Mm.
her to our favorite restaurant, which was across the street. They've been going here for 4 months, getting ready for their child. So they went to go get breakfast while I was getting ready. And so that was an important role for my father to play.
Mm.
He bore my mother and he bore me while holding on to his own emotions. Now, one thing that I
Mm.
do wish was present, even currently, is more therapy and resources for fathers. I
Mhm.
know at Kaiser Permanente they have a spouse corner, which is a connection to a therapist, connection to conversations about medicine, treatment while at home. Like one thing I had was a heart monitor. My heart would drop drastically when I was at home with my parents, and a full siren would go off. So my father had to be very knowledgeable very quickly on how to keep me alive.
I think that's definitely in terms of the therapies and support, as with a focus on fathers. I think that's something I've definitely heard as an emerging kind of priority or area of focus in the research space, definitely in the last 5 years or so, which is great. And it's wonderful to hear you kind of advocating for the same thing as well, Jacque. And I was just wondering, when you were growing up as a kid, what was your childhood like as an ex-Premi survivor? Like, what was the kind of, it seems to be your parents talk to you a lot about your story and, your birth story, but, what was it like for you day to day?
Well, my childhood was a blessed experience. I enjoyed being a kid. I enjoyed learning. I enjoyed reading. One thing that reason why my parents named me Jacques is because my dad loved Jacques Cousteau in high school. And he said, when my son is born, his name is going to be Jacques. And so he spelled it the same without the S. And so my childhood was, I already had a fun name. They wanted me to be an explorer. So I went into the arts. I'm a trained actor, and I value the arts. I value learning. I value reading. My mother took us to the library every summer. Now, I didn't learn how to ride a bike till I was 13. And so one of my childhood experiences was learning to ride a bike at night because I didn't want any of the other kids in the community to see me. But my father and my parents were right there supporting me, uh, making sure that I was very clear about where I came from. And they didn't hide anything from me. They didn't hide any of their awful experiences. My brother was also born with cerebral palsy 6 years later. And so there was a whole adventure
Mm.
that my parents had in making sure that special need children felt special. And so that's one thing that I did. I felt special. I didn't feel superior. I was still regulated. I still had punishments. I still was given responsibility. But one thing that I was given was hope. And I just knew that life could be better. And so that was a wonderful catalyst for me as an author to just be able to say, okay, looking at all these varied situations and circumstances, there still can be hope, and we could still carry on, and we could still form community. So I just had a wonderful community. Also, my brother's godmother was one of my original nurses at Kaiser Permanente.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was very just wonderfully orchestrated, the people that were in my life. I have a host of aunts and uncles that have no blood relation, but were invested very early in my life. And so that was a great, my grandmothers were present, my uncles were present, my cousins were present. So my family really made it a family affair to make Jacques Lamont Herman feel valid, special, whole, complete, and inspired.
Sounds a beautiful upbringing right there.
Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And do you think it's helped you understanding your start in life from your parents? I'm assuming they told you quite early on. How's that helped you be who you are now, knowing your journey and the stories from your parents?
Thank you for asking that. I think life is very complex, and I don't think that you should hide the complexities from children, because then we don't know how to problem solve. Like by being able to hear my parents' testimony and the things that they have endured and the things that made them cry and laugh add to my adulthood. And
Yeah.
so I think it makes me resilient. Resilience is the ability to adapt, cope, and thrive despite tough situations. So you really can't hide tough situations from children. They're already experiencing it. They already know something's happening. They may not have the vocabulary for it. And I think it's the responsibility of the adult, whichever adult, it might be an uncle, an aunt, a grandparent, to be able to say to a child, this is what life is, and this is how you can be a contributor in that life, despite all. So that's one thing that just my parents instilled into me, that this a very high work ethic and a very high faith orient of just being able to say, you're not alone. One of my favorite quotes that I heard growing up is, you are not a drop in the ocean. You are the ocean in one drop. Isn't that lovely?
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah.
That's lovely because you do think, I think sometimes it's very easy to feel alone, and especially with the lack of touch that I received just at a very early age. Sometimes I wonder, am I just craving a hug? Like, what is this? But I know there's all sorts of neuroscience with babies who aren't touched, babies who aren't talked to, babies who aren't held. And I'm so very grateful that I wasn't a part of that demographic. Um, and I just appreciate that they're, even still in my adulthood, they're still willing to say, I love you. They're still willing to say, I'm sorry for this or that. They are still willing to be able to say, we are learning too. And I think that's just something that's happening right now in the world, where parents are being able to admit that I didn't know what I was doing, just like you didn't know what you were doing as a kid, and now we can both share our experiences. So I hope that answers your question, Emma, because
No, absolutely. Thank
very
you. No,
excited
it's a
about
great
that.
answer.
Mhm.
And I just wondering, Jacque, and in the because we've had the fortune of being able to speak to quite a few kind of adults who were born preemie the last couple of months, which has been wonderful, just to, as a parent who's had a preemie, just hear the stories about, what their childhood has been like, and kind of what their life is like as an adult, which is really wonderful for me. And the thing that surprised me the most when they were talking was that their birth story, even as adults, is still relevant. When they, for example, if they have to see a doctor or if they have to talk to someone about something. Do you find that that's the case for you, or is it still in terms of that, if you have to kind of mention, oh, well, I was born an ex-preemie, that's a factor I need to consider?
Not recently, but it is an important talking point. It creates a great amount of empathy when I am speaking with doctors because I realize that doctors are always practicing and that they might not get it right all the time. I don't. I often wonder what would happen if I met the doctor that diagnosed me with 50% chance of life, because I would love to ask which 50 were they leaning on? Did they think I was going to survive, or did they actually think I was going to die? And both of those things professionally, they would have had to be prepared for. And so it gives me a great amount of empathy, this experience that I have, to be able
Mm.
to say to people who are in the medical staff, it is still okay to be human. It's still okay to admit your mistakes, and it is still okay to be brave. Um, Oftentimes, medical staff won't be brave in trying some new invention that will save lives or new, like, for example, I was wrapped in bubble wrap to keep me warm. The incubator was not warm enough. And so I often say that that was really my first mother because that was the first thing that touched me. So every time I see
Yeah.
bubble wrap, I'm like, "Oh," but still that's innovation. Someone's
Yeah.
thinking outside of the box of how can I save this child's life? How can I impart wisdom in all these other staff to be able to save this child's life? And so I am an advocate for competent staff members who don't just see people as numbers, because it's very
Yeah.
easy to. If you saw 50 people a day, eventually they all just blend. But if there's no one really saying, I am a person too, and I am in need of care too, a lot of the medical field is dated and antiquated, just the things that people are learning. And it's important that we know that that 50% that you are diagnosing people with is a label, and it doesn't mean that that label is true. And so that's something that affects me when I am with the doctor. I make sure that the doctor acknowledges me. Make sure that the doctor says my name. I make sure that the doctor gives me at least 90 seconds of uninterrupted conversation, because if I was in the situation and parents weren't able to speak what they were feeling to a person who's giving them information about medicines and trachs and all sorts of different apparatuses, then I would feel that that connection would be lost. So that's one of my main concerns when talking with doctors and staff and nurses. Be kind, be gentle, and be quiet, and listen to these parents.
It's amazing what you say, and I guess like such a big shift over time in terms of the care of babies. Not only, and like you said, they had to be so innovative back then in terms of, because they didn't know like how are they going to support babies. But then moving forward to our experience as parents, and then even seeing how far it's come since we've had our babies, that there has been such a big push to integrate families into the care of their babies. So there's a program called Fly Care, which is family integrated care that started in Canada, and that's slowly creeping across the world in terms of the NICUs and being able to push that. I love what you said about the importance of touch, and Nat mentioned that we're recording this on World Prematurity Day, and I think one of the things is immediate kangaroo care from birth, so that there is that immediate, no separation, immediate kind of touch when the babies are born. So yeah, I mean, just having that
Because
respect
the
and
fear,
getting.
Melinda, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's fine.
The fear that parents have immediately is very present,
Yeah.
and it will separate them because that baby is so small. Oh no, I can't touch. Oh no, I can't be too loud. Oh, I can't trigger. All of these can'ts come in that parent's mind. And then they think because a doctor has the expertise, which a doctor has a certain expertise, that they are not, that they are secondary to the child's care or well-being. Um, no, I don't want um, I want my own breast milk. Or no, I want to be able to visit. No, I want pictures of the family in the NICU for the baby. So, different things that parents still have agency with, and that they can communicate with their doctors. And the doctors can also communicate with them. Okay, please bring a blanket, bring this, anything to support those babies and their desire to come home, because that's the whole point. I want my baby to come home. I want my
Yeah.
baby to come home with me.
Right. Yeah.
Hmm.
I love
And
this.
yeah, it's that
And
you're living in this world where you're so terrified over something that you're so in love with. Like it's, yeah, I understand what you're saying.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
I will not admit that even though like my book is written in the form of Dr. Seuss, so it's iambic pentameter. It's written as a poem. One of my friends, when reading it, said, "How did you make this very harsh situation so light?" And so it doesn't take away the gravity of it. This is still a scary experience, but there is light. There is hope. It's not all dark. You can still breathe. That's one thing that I wish I could have incorporated more into the book. Parents, take a breath and breathe. And
You
just,
got one more section that you could read to us?
yeah, I
oh,
was thinking that.
absolutely. Oh, that would
Yeah.
be wonderful. Thank you for inviting me to that. Okay.
Okay.
So there's a part where I tell a story. So I'll read this out loud.
Mm.
And this is the address to the parents. Time will do its thing. And parents, please persevere. You may visit the NICU daily and always be of good cheer. Dad, you will carry mom because your child is hers. Mom, you will need to pray for dad as he sets the vision for your futures. As parents, you are only human, and I know your child is on your minds. Delight joyfully of diapers, toys, and living life sublime. As you journey through this ordeal, remember to have grace. Keep a restaurant in mind when you need to fix your face. This NICU baby belongs in God's hands. He knows the plans for them. Allow His will to be done and the purposes from Him. Dear baby preemie, I was just like you. Many years later, just look at what God can do. Never the end. So that's a few passages of the last part of the book. And I think it was very important for me to say never the end. A parent's love never ends. It absolutely doesn't end. And I know parents who unfortunately have lost their children at a very young age, and it might be 2, 3 years later, and that love that they have never ends. And so even when reading the book, you can still have hope to know, okay, I did all the best that I could possibly do. The staff did everything that they could possibly do. I forgive myself for any mistakes that I might have made. And also, my love never ends. It just never ends. And so I think every single parent needs to know that the story does not end because of tragedy. And the story doesn't end at the hospital either, because once you take that child home, that's all. My,
Where
my
it starts.
pastor's wife often says, you carry your child for 9 months, and then for the rest of your lives, you carry them on your heart. So I just know parents, it is your actual heart living outside of your body when it's involved with your child. And so you just need, and other people need to know that this is my heart. This is the one that I love. I birthed this creature, and he or she is worth your love as well. And so there needs to be a deep understanding for any child who has experienced adverse childhood experiences, to be able to know and understand, I'm loved, I'm cared for. I heard someone say children need to be able to understand it, that's the mind, understand it, that's the heart, and overstand it, that's the atmosphere. I need to feel loved in all three of those areas.
I gotta write that one down.
Yeah.
I know,
I
that's
can't-
beautiful words.
and it makes for much more prosperous adults, because I do think that is the responsibility of a parent. You need to train and raise your child so that someone else can love them, not just you, but the rest of the world has to love them too. So there's
Mm.
all sorts of things that need to be fed into that child way before they leave the house at 18, 17, whenever they leave, or they're on their way to college, So
My son
and
always says you need
congratulations.
to love yourself first as well. We taught him, he
Yes,
said you have to love yourself first, and that you
absolutely.
get that from the love you get from your family. He says it all the time. Got to love
Yeah.
yourself first, mummy, so everybody else can love you.
And I've struggled with that. I've struggled with loving myself. I didn't think I was good enough. I didn't think that I was brave. I didn't think that I was kind enough. There's all these things that you create in your inner monologue. And I don't know if you've seen Luca, but I love that Disney movie. It says "Silencio, Bruno," like quiet the noise in your mind,
I
because it actually, for this book, it took me 2 years to write it. I was
Wow.
so hesitant because, one, I didn't think that it was necessary. Two, I was just doubting myself. But then when I finally got it into my hands, I was like, oh, this is powerful, and this can help someone. And if I'm not able to hug every single parent in the world, at least my book can.
Yeah. Well, I
And
had a read of your reviews, and the main thing that I got, not only was it so inspirational for people that were reading it, but that they had their education as well. So you're inspiring them and helping them at the same time, and that's just magical. So well done.
Thank you.
Jacque, 2 quick questions from me. I just want to ask, when a parent picks up a book, is it pretty obvious that this was written by an ex-NICU survivor? Like, so some kind
Yes.
of intro saying yes.
Yeah, that's the first thing. As soon as you
Yeah.
open the book, I say that very quickly. I
Yeah.
say, "Dear Baby Preemie, I was just like you, small and weighing nothing, but God saw me through." That's the very first page of the book. And then in the latter part, I put that I was 2 pounds and 2 ounces. And as you said, Emma, 95 pound, 95, what did you say, kilometer?
900 grams. Just on
I
900
think
900
it's around
grams.
about 900 grams. Yeah, I have to convert it.
Yeah.
Yeah, my son was
My
960,
parents,
and I'm English, and
parents
my
have
mum and
that
dad still do
picture.
it in pounds, so I had to do
Uh-huh.
conversion.
Got it.
Yeah.
And you're
Got it.
definitely a very early baby. From January to April, that's at least 12 weeks. So
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I was early.
yeah, very, very early. That's amazing. So where can people find your book if they want a copy?
Absolutely. So right now it's available on Amazon.com. You can simply put in my name. I also have an Instagram handle, which is my full name, Jacque, JacqueLherman. So that's my full name, Jacque L. Herman, no spaces, all lowercase. That's my page for Dear Baby Preemie.
We'll
And
pop
And is
that
it
in
electronic and
the-
hard copy?
correct. Yeah, there is an
Yes.
audiobook. Um,
Oh, lovely.
it's available on audio, and then I'm currently working on some new projects. Hopefully by next year I'll have it recorded in English and Spanish.
Ah,
So that's what I'm hopefully going for, because currently the book isn't illustrated. When I first made the book, I just wanted the poem aspect, but it's under construction, and so stay tuned. Stay tuned. By 2024, we should be seeing some new editions of Dear Baby Preemie: A Miracle in the NICU.
Jacque, you're amazing.
Oh,
Like,
thanks.
just like, even the fact that you're going into the NICU as well, like, that's not an easy thing to do. Like, you've made this book and you go in there and just, that's, it's.
And the other thing I wanted to say,
Inspiring,
you
I think,
mentioned
is the
about
word I would go for.
yeah.
Thank you.
You were mentioning about wanting to meet the doctor. If you ever have that opportunity, like my son, so he was born at 27 weeks, and when he was about 17 or 18, he was invited back to a function at the hospital.
Really?
And went back, and the doctor that resuscitated him, when they shook hands, honestly, it was electric. Like I just had this thing through me, and it's a photo that I cherish. Yeah, so I hope that you
I
do
would
get
love
that.
that. I would really love that opportunity, just to show the doctor I survived. I'm on the
Yeah.
50% chance. I think that's just
Was you
wonderful.
work at the place where that was? There's no way to track the
I'm sure
doctor
I
down.
can, and actually, that's a really great assignment for me to do. I
Just
haven't pursued it, but yeah, just to look at my birth certificate, see, okay, who was the physician at the
Oh,
moment? That would be a good.
yeah.
I think I might do that. Um,
But if
I
you do,
focus.
you should document that and then let
Yeah.
us know. We'd
That
love
would
to
be
share that.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would actually be. That's a really great idea that I hadn't thought about.
Yeah, I tracked down the surgeon that did my son's surgery when he was
Uh-huh.
first born, and I dropped him an email and sent him some photos. My son's a 50-50 baby as well, right? So I messaged him and sent some photos, and I was like, I'm sure you don't remember him. And he was like, absolutely, I remember him. It's great to see he's doing so well. And he was like, if you're ever up in Newcastle, then, I'd love to see you and Alfie. So it was really, I think he was equally happy to know how my son was doing, and I was really happy just to go, thank you so much. If it wasn't for you, then it'd be a very different story. So it's amazing. Yeah,
That's so beautiful. And I love that because we're all in community together. So the physicians and the families, we're all here together to get this job done.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Which is
Well, it's almost twofold, isn't it? Like they're your blessing, but at the same time, you're a blessing to the work that they, have set out to do and what they've dedicated their working
Way to
life
say
to.
that.
So yeah, it's amazing.
Mhm. What were the names of all of your children?
So I've got Elijah, Dylan, and Jasper.
Elijah, Dylan, and Jasper. Okay. What about you, Emma?
I've just got one, so I've got Alfie. Alfie's
Alfie.
mine. So Alfie, yeah, trouble.
And Natalie?
And I've got twins, Raph and Dante.
Raph and Dante. Oh, wonderful. Well, give each of them my love. They have
Thank
wonderful
you.
mothers.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you so much, Jacque. It's been wonderful to speak to you. It's always wonderful to hear from an adult ex-Premie, because I think, it kind of fills us with hope, and it's always wonderful to hear your story and experience. And it's extraordinary what you've done. I think it's an incredible act of generosity to, see what's happening around you and produce something that kind of gives so much hope and healing to families also going through something like that. And not just families, but the clinicians as well in the NICU looking after our babies. So thank you so much.
Natalie.
And we'd love to, no worries.
And it was a pleasure.
Let us know
It was
what
really
happens.
Yes, absolutely. It was a pleasure being here, and I hope that this will remain connected.
Yes,
Because
absolutely.
Yes. Keep us
Thank you.
updated with the other
Thank you so
projects and the
much.
translations.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you so much for having me, Melinda, Emma, and Natalie. Thank you.
Thanks, Jacque.
Thank you.
Till the next time. Thanks, guys, and hope you enjoyed this episode. Lovely. That's a wrap on another episode of the NICU Live Network. Thanks for joining us today. To stay connected, please make sure you're following us on social media.
And if you found value in this episode, please share, like, or comment.
We'll see you on the next episode.